Hi, everybody. We're here at Horseshoe Mound today. We are live at Horseshoe Mound to tell you a little bit about what's going on here. Today, we are here to talk to the Galena Area Land Enthusiast Group and learn a little bit about what they're doing here and why. So I want to introduce you to the crew leader here, Bill Reed. He's going to tell us all about GALE.
Enough of that. If you have a sick savanna, the question is, obviously, who are you going to call? The answer? The savanna doctor, and that is who you are looking at right now. I am the savanna doctor, and my nurses and male nurses and female nurses, they're down the road a piece. They're working down there, preparing a tree that's going to fall later on in the program. So what I'd like to talk about first off is, what is a sick savanna? In fact, what is a savanna? I think most of you probably know. In back of us, the area above us is a hillside savanna. You can tell it's a hillside savanna because you can see the large oak trees. The whole land, the inside of the horseshoe on Horseshoe Mound, all of it is south-facing. That's another clue that you're in a savanna area, is a south-facing slope. The top of the ridge receives full sunlight, so that also qualifies as being part of the savanna. Another thing that makes it a savanna is that because it receives so much sun, it's drier. It's a much drier climate. And these large oak trees, and right here, this beautiful hickory, these trees are adapted to a slightly drier climate. When you're dealing with a forest situation on the other side of the mound, it's a little bit more moist because the sun doesn't hit it directly, and it creates a different environment completely.
So on the north slope, it looks like more of kind of a closed woodland. On the south slope, it may be more of an open oak savanna type.
Absolutely. You got it perfect. Absolutely perfect. So anyway, what's a sick savanna? Well, a sick savanna is one that is overrun with trees and woody shrubs that have migrated from the riparian areas, which are lowland areas. They've come in on the wind. They've come in on the fur of animals. They've come in their droppings. Birds love to sit on fences. We're right on the edge of a fence line. This fence has mulberries from one end to the other, and we've saved one mulberry to show you. We're going to drop it, as I said, later on in the program.
Okay, great. So that's a little bit about an oak savanna. And why are we trying to restore this oak savanna to begin with? What's the point of that?
Well, first off, I should point out it's probably the rarest ecosystem on the planet. There are so very few of them left. An oak hickory savanna is even rarer than an oak savanna. We're trying to restore them, I suppose, to bring back the good old days. We're trying to restore them to preserve the oak trees, the oak species, which is moving towards the endangered species list, I guess is how you would say it.
And a lot of the animals that depend on these ecosystems are as well.
Absolutely. All the animals that depend on acorns, and it's amazing who eats acorns.
Yeah.
All of them depend upon our restoring these and making them healthy again.
Well, we love watching you guys work out here in the hill, and we can really tell there's been a lot of really good progress over the past couple of years here. So can you show us a little bit about the equipment that you have here with you?
Well, isn't that a surprise? Right in back of you, there happens to be a whole bunch of equipment. I'll go real fast from left to right. This is what we started with back 9 years ago when we first started back in I'll talk about that a little later in history, but that's what we began with.
Loppers.
Just a simple pair of loppers.
And now what would you cut with loppers?
With loppers, we cut everything that we could cut with loppers. Basically, we were cutting out shrubs.
Okay.
Honeysuckle would be an example of that.
Yeah.
There wasn't much we could cut with them, to be
Right?
perfectly
Yeah.
honest. We cut what we could. And this was one of our early tools too. This doesn't have much to do with forestry. This is when we were over at Gateway Park. We used this to dig thistle. We call it a prairie predator.
So this is for digging up deep tap roots. Is that right?
That's right. This is a taproot tool. That's what it's shaped for, is to get down an inch or 2 or 3 beneath the Earth's surface and cut them there and pop them out. Then we get into our fire equipment. This is a pair of wire cutters for fencing. Doesn't fit anywhere in this presentation. Fire building equipment, the most important thing of all, gloves, and the simple match. We use matches and papers. We don't use accelerants in our work. A, they're dangerous, and B, they're polluting. So we try to stay away from those items. This is a device used for working in the yard and also pulling things out of the fire so that you can throw them back in a little further into the fire. We also bring our wind machine.
Okay.
You need a wind machine on calm days when things aren't burning.
Yeah.
So a wind machine. Then, for safety's sake, we go to the flapper. The flapper is a really important tool if the fire should escape the burn area, the burn unit. The rake, we use that to rake things back into the fire. And we also use it to, for instance, on this driveway or this little road called Richardson Lane, that's our name for it. When we drop a tree there, when the debris after we cut the tree up, we have to rake it out of there because oftentimes there are thorns and things that are going to get stuck in people's tires. So this is a handy tool. Then we get to what we now currently use. This is, we have about 5 or 6 of these for spraying herbicide. We only use herbicide after we cut a tree down. Certain trees, cedars don't resprout. When you cut them down, they're done. But almost every other tree will resprout if you don't spray it.
So your maples and your basswood, those you'll have to treat to keep them from stump sprouting.
And this is what we use to do that after we've cut them down. This is a handy little item called paint. We use paint for a couple of purposes. We use them to disguise some of our stumps, like we're right across from a house here, and so that they don't look out and see this ugly stump sitting there across from their front window. We'll spray it and camouflage the stump so you can't see it. But the most important use of it is if we happen to damage an oak tree, happen to bang a limb, we'll cut the limb and then we'll spray it with paint. And we do that so that the picnic beetle, which takes about, from the time you cut an oak tree in the summer till the time a picnic beetle discovers it, is about 20 minutes. And they are the guys that spread oak wilt. And so if you want to avoid oak wilt, anytime you prune a tree, it's very wise to paint an oak tree cut.
And you said something earlier about only pruning oaks in the winter.
Yes. If you prune an oak tree, you should only prune in the winter. Then that little beetle is not around in the winter. And so that's the time to do it. You do it in the summer, and even painting it, there's a certain amount of risk associated with doing your tree trimming in the summer. So be cautious. Only do oaks in the winter.
I think that's good advice for folks with oaks at home.
Next item, this is a brush cutter. And we use that to cut the grasses, the weeds, and things so that the poison ivy would be a good example of one of those weeds, so that we can even get in there and work on them. Then we have our favorite, the chainsaw. The chainsaw is our key tool. That is, it does everything. We cut grass with it. We can cut anything with it. And if you look in this this is a burn pile from Tuesday. That was a couple days ago. To give you an idea of the different sizes of the timber that we cut. You can see everything from small pieces to rather large, good sized logs are in there. And all of that's done with chainsaws with us. The Conservation Foundation now comes in with forestry mulchers. And they do the big easy portions where they can get in with it. We go into the tough spots that they can't get to because of rocks and being in the way.
That makes sense.
And some of the trees are just so big that the forestry mulchers can't deal with them. So that's when we use our chainsaws. We always wear protective equipment. The helmet. This is, I hate them, but it's essential.
It is essential, yep.
It has a face shield so that the debris that blows in your face is, you're protected from it. And then the sound, you can bring these buds down and cover your ears. So the helmet is pretty nice. And these are chaps. Chaps. We were talking earlier, we couldn't decide what is inside these. Some sort of cellulose material. It catches if I should accidentally cut into my leg. This will catch this material. It's usually asbestos, I think. It'll catch it and it will grind that soil to a halt in a fraction of a second. You'll probably still get cut, but it won't be as severe a cut.
It'll save your limb.
It'll save, yeah, literally. So these are extremely important and we never fail to wear them.
Wow. So now, did you supply all of your own equipment here? Like you just have this in your garage?
This is in my garage.
Yeah.
Yes. All of us are volunteers.
How about the other guys?
We're all volunteers. We all, up to the present day, we do get from the Conservation Foundation, we get chaps, although that happens to be a pair I bought. But everybody who chainsaws gets a pair, is given a pair of chaps. They get a helmet from the Conservation Foundation. Now there's a gas can over there. We now have a community gas can. The Conservation Foundation gasses us up. Up until this year, they didn't, but they do now. And so otherwise, the saw is mine. Everybody buys their own saw. Some of the equipment is provided by the Conservation Foundation. The flapper, the rake is mine. Brush cutter is mine. They do have brush cutters, but it's just handy to have it and go out and use it without having to go through all the
Great, yeah.
making the journey.
We actually have a question.
Oh, good. What's your question?
So I think this is maybe COVID related.
Okay.
Do you clean saws and tools to prevent cross-contamination?
I use my saw. Nobody else uses it. I don't clean it. Nobody else uses it.
That's a good.
And that's pretty much true of everything you see here. We all operate with our own equipment. So I don't think there's any cross-contamination at all.
Great. That was a good question. If you guys have more questions, continue to ask some good questions. So we're going to take a walk here and Bill's going to tell us a little bit about the history of GALE. So GALE's been around for a long time and he's going to tell us about kind of how it got started and some of the different projects. So let's go for a little walk.
Okay, GALE is 9 years old. We've been doing this on a year-long basis. We work summer, winter, spring, fall, all 4 seasons. If the snow isn't too deep, if the temperatures aren't too cold or too hot, we're out here. We work every Tuesday and Thursday from 9 to noon.
9 to noon.
And we're always looking for more volunteers. We've got a crew up ahead of us that we're heading towards. And that big kind of yellowish tree, that's a mulberry tree. And it's going to be taken down. We're going to get up here a little further and we'll give the signal and down it'll come. We've already got it half cut.
We have a follow-up question.
Oh, good.
Ooh.
Okay, so the question, She meant contaminating with weeds or tree seeds to other trees or land.
I'm not sure what the question is.
With your tools, would they spread?
Oh, would my tools spread, contaminate things? I don't think so.
I know that when our other stewardship team at Wapello works, they're mindful to not wear the same clothing, for example, and the same equipment. If they're, for example, removing garlic mustard, and they don't want to spread or thistle, and they don't want to spread seeds around. Sometimes those seeds attach to your clothing. They won't wear the same clothing and stuff like that. Now, do you guys do anything like that here? Where
We don't. We basically anymore, all we do is work with trees.
Yeah.
And cut down large brush. Now, of course, we do walk through areas where seeds affix to you.
Sure.
And we're constantly picking them off. But cross-contaminating,
it's not a huge risk in this restoration.
I wouldn't
project.
think so. Plus that we're going to come through here. In fact, it just happened last week. If you look up the hill, you can see a lot of burned areas. We burn these properties, and anything that would be seeds that they generally are consumed by fire.
The beautiful thing about fire is it really takes down invasive species, that are not already adapted to this area.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We'll continue walking. Okay, first, we had 3 projects at Gateway. Gateway accounted for our first, I would say, 6 or 7 years. Our first project was clearing and working the land for the planting of the prairies that you can see up off of Route 20.
I think a lot of folks in the Galena area probably remember that project.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And that's where we used that Predator, that shovel, the odd-shaped shovel. We took out thousands upon thousands upon thousands of thistle. 3 years of thistle removal. Let me tell you, that was boring. We have a car.
Work.
We have a car coming down the lane. Okay. So we'll just have to stop right about here for a moment. The second project we worked on, you might get, he may accidentally cut the tree down early. The second project, we don't get much of traffic on this road. The second project we worked on at Gateway was we had a savanna in the bottom of the Gateway Park down near the railroad tracks.
Yeah.
About a 15 or 20 acre project. Okay, he's going to start cutting that tree down. You might want to catch it when it falls.
This is the last big tree.
This is the last tree on this particular section. We already had the face cut made, and he's now doing the back cut, and it should fall directly on the road. Here it goes. I heard the first sounds.
Woo! Wow. Woo!
There you
that
have
was
it.
Impressive.
Isn't that something?
Wow.
We do that usually maybe 5 to 10 times a day when we're here.
Twice a week, yeah. So do you know what species this is?
That is a mulberry.
Okay, this is a mulberry, one of those fast-growing.
White mulberry. Some people call them white mulberries. Some call them Russian mulberries. Okay. The species, I think, came from China. It was brought here when they thought they could do the silk industry. Yeah. And that didn't go so well. But anyway, there are lots of mulberries, and the birds just spread them everywhere.
Yeah.
It's a real junk tree.
Well, this is great. This is a lot of fun. And now this work crew, what's their next step here?
Okay, this is Greg Painter right here, and Kevin Lanigan, and Steve Young over here. These guys, what they'll do is they'll take, normally I'd be there with a chainsaw too. They'll begin chainsawing up the branches. They'll kind of stack them on, since it's landed on a road, they'll stack them on the road. Tyler, who's right behind me, with his tractor will come over. He's got a grapple on the front of the tractor. and he'll grab a clump of what they stack, and then he'll drive it over to the brush pile. There's a brush pile. All these logs have been piled up nearby, and he'll just move them right onto that. And then on a future workday, we'll burn it up.
Cool. Wow. Well, this looks like a lot of fun. Now, if anybody here would like to join this GALE group,
That was pretty simple. You contact the Joe Davies Conservation Foundation. They'll give you my name, my phone number, although it's in the directory. So you can just call me and skip the Joe Davies Conservation Foundation, and you can join that way. I'll send out an email to you that'll welcome you to our group. I'll also send out the day before a work day, like on a Monday, I'll send out an email. Whoop, here we go. On Monday, I'll send one out for Tuesday. And we start at 9 in the morning and work till noon. And then in the old days, we used to go to Dillon's. Camaraderie is part of our deal.
oh yes.
We'd go to Dillon's, we'd have beer and a burger. Now we don't go to Dillon's because of COVID. Little noisy. We don't go to Dillon's anymore. There's a white barn that in the distance we'll push that big door open at the barn, and we'll bring some beverages along. Some people bring pop, some people bring a beer, and we'll sit and for an hour and a half, we'll just sit and talk and have a good time.
Awesome.